it's pronounced Zech. Is that right?
That's right, it's Zach. It's pronounced George, right?
You don't mind if I wear a baseball cap, right? I'm trying not to look like I'm 112 years old. Is that all right?
That's great.
Okay. How you doing, Zach? It's nice to meet you. You
It's
look
great.
different from your LinkedIn picture.
Yeah, I haven't used AI on the LinkedIn picture yet, but I've been thinking about is it a good idea? Because everyone seems to be doing it, but I think it's kind of gross potentially. What's your opinion on that?
Um, I can see where it helps. So
Right.
a friend of mine, an ex-partner of mine, sent me some pictures of me enhanced with AI, and I can see. I have a friend who is an account person, and she's a client, and she works for the dating site. I was just telling my wife she works for the dating site Hinge, and I just sent her a note saying, you ought to do you ought to do a spin-off of Hinge for people my age, and we should call it Rusty Hinge. And I could see if I put that on a Rusty Hinge site. I mean, I'm a happily married man. I'm not dating, but I could see like God, the AI picture my ex-partner gave of me, like I would date me, but it looks great. But looks aren't everything, as they say.
Did you ever use that face swap where it turns you into like a woman, basically the woman
No,
version of yourself? Yeah,
no,
that's freaky.
no. I don't want to. I don't actually. When my sister was alive, she and I were only 2 years apart, and we looked like. I mean, she was the female version of me. She looked just like me.
There you
So
go. So you kind of had the real life thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So where are you, Zach?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay, good for you.
Yeah, and you're not your LLC is in Delaware, but you're not in
The the
Delaware,
the
correct?
Delaware thing is a joke.
It's a joke because that's the place to do the LLCs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So I said, well, I'm going to act like I'm a tax violator and a cheater, like everybody. Well, like why shouldn't I? If it works for Citibank and DuPont and that shit, why shouldn't I do it? So no, I have an apartment in New York and I have a country place in Connecticut. So I'm up in Connecticut now.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on the
Well,
sea in Connecticut, so
that's great.
far away from the troops in Portland.
Yeah, I know. It's been a heck of a year for Portland, Oregon. It continues over here. We're sort of managing this like everybody here is of one flavor, obviously. And then you have the mainstream media. You have all the media and their reaction to Portland, and it's sort of like it's just such a whiplash because when I came here in 2009, Portland was literally the Portlandia utopia.
Yeah,
There were the New
yeah.
York Times every week, like best place to live, best restaurants. And next thing you know, like 20 years later or 15 years later, they're like, oh, it's riots in the streets and they're releasing, toxic toxoplasmosis. Everyone has that from the cats, and you can't live here.
Okay. Well, I'd rather live in Portland than Mar-a-Lago.
Fair. Absolutely. Same.
Yeah, yeah,
Same. Well, thanks for doing the show.
yeah.
This is episode 7. The average podcast goes 8 episodes, so I'm very close to being above
Okay.
average here.
Good.
I'm very close, and I had
Good.
you on
Well,
my
I'll
list.
do what I can to bring you down.
I had you on the list when I started it. I made a list of some people. I was like, I would love to interview these people or chat with them just about what's going on. And you were one of those people. You seem to always be popping up in the LinkedIn feed. I really love LinkedIn too. And you always have something good to say. And I've sort of been advertising and advertising adjacent. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of more interested in, I mean, there's lots of topics, but
You're
I
you're going
guess,
to ask me questions, right? I don't have to respond to your note.
no, 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 no. I'll ask
Okay.
you questions.
Okay. Good.
But let me just intro you because
Sure.
for people who don't know you, so my next guest is the Chief George Officer at GeorgeCo, LLC, a Delaware company located in New York City. Uh, he has over 40 years of experience in the ad industry, including working at Ogilvy, Publicis, Digitas, RGA, and others. In January 2020, he founded GeorgeCo LLC, a Delaware company, to do things differently. He writes for AdAged, his blog, a Business Insider most influential blog. He believes good writing is a business advantage. Please welcome LinkedIn legend, advertising legend, George Tannenbaum.
Thunderous applause.
Cue applause. That's right.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Did I nail it? Did I get some things
Yeah,
right? Okay.
that was good. That was good.
Okay. All right. All right. So the show's called "What Are You Making?" Let's start there with like what you're. I mean, you're in Connecticut. You said so you might be taking time off. But what is like
No,
the
no,
most
no. I always work.
you're
I mean,
working? Okay.
I'm a happy man in that I love what I do. And my one of my overarching beliefs, and you didn't ask for this, one of my overarching beliefs is that creative people, and that doesn't mean copywriters and art directors, means anyone who creates is essentially generous
Hmm.
because we give something, we believe we're giving something to the world that the world is better with than without. And I think that's an act of generosity. When advertising, when the work I do is going well, I truly feel, of course, money is important to me, but I truly feel like I'm helping the people who pay me, um, who I usually wind up at some level caring about, and I care about their business. So, creativity, in my overarching opinion, is an act of generosity. And I'm not comparing myself to Van Gogh or anything like that, but, helping a business is important too. Nominally, you're helping people. So, what am I making?
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean,
work with a
let me
lot.
just answer that because I think that's a beautiful sentiment, and I think that's really lost on creatives today. That what you do is kind of a gift that you give people, right? Speaking of the
Well, that's
holidays.
that's it's a gift to ourselves too. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
at some level, if it's not soothing your soul, and you might have to do a little rationalization if you're writing coupon ads and 728 by 90 banners all day on
Emails. Yeah.
this, yeah, emails on the soul soothing stuff. But, that's up to you to find um your meaning. But, I do believe, you know, I know some of your questions in your note to me are about an industry losing its way and monopolies and things like that. I do believe at a very, very macro level, the industry, maybe the world, has lost sight on the power of creativity, the power of transformational idea, the power of the things we make to influence people in a positive way or in any way, actually. And, at its best, that's what we make. That's what we do. We change minds and hearts and wallets and all that stuff. And, since I started my own business, I mean, the business has changed so much since, and I'm a lifer in the business in that my father was in it before me and his brother before him.
Oh wow.
So there's been a Tannenbaum in the advertising business since just after World War II. Um, that's a long time. And, I believe that, when we're doing well, we're helping people and we're helping clients make better decisions. And as liberal in Portlandia as I am, I'm a capitalist. It's, as Winston Churchill said about democracy, it's the worst form of government except for all the others.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what's better than it. I haven't
Sure.
figured it. I mean, it'd be great if we all lived in Kumbaya land, but that doesn't usually work out.
No, we tried that in Portland.
Yeah,
So that's a really great, and I want to dig into that. Well, I had this ordered, but like I want to ask that question because of your long tail career in advertising, and you're saying
right.
it's like a family business. Uh, so I watch a lot of finance TV, and they're always talking about the minute that everything kind of went to hell was when we went off the gold standard during,
Oh,
I think it was Nixon or
yeah,
something, or I don't know.
yeah,
There's a moment where everybody goes, that was it, that was where we lost our way, and now it's inflation and
yeah,
everybody's
yeah. I
getting
understand
screwed.
that. Yeah.
So with that analogy, is there an analogy like that for advertising where you felt like in your career we went off the gold standard, like we stopped being creative and we started being, why we started being
I,
something else?
I think you have to deconstruct the word "we" there.
Okay.
because I think right now the we I'm going to put in as the holding company monoliths.
Okay.
And yes, they and the CPAs that run the advertising business now do not understand the value of advertising. To quote Oscar Wilde, his definition of a cynic is someone who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And they don't really understand what creativity can do. What's more, they are uncomfortable with risk. If you think about world history, I'm talking the sweep of human history. So
Hmm.
since the beginning of writing, roughly 6,000 years ago, that's when you'd really date history to. All progress, and I'd go so far as to say back 4.5 million years ago when we went from walking on all fours to walking on twos, all progress comes from taking a risk. And right now we have a system in advertising that attempts to mitigate risk,
Mm.
creative risk. And they say, well, we don't know what's going to hit people. So rather than try to do one thing that's striking and interesting and creative and attention getting, I'm going to send you, Zech, I'm going to send you 5 million messages today.
Right.
You know what? I have this thing I'm working on now with Microsoft. It's called nostril advertising. We actually place ads up your nose. It goes into your sinus chambers and will penetrate your brain. I could sell that right now,
Sure.
you know,
If it was AI.
yeah, and advertising any progress is a risk. When our great ancestors came down from living in trees to walking on the savannah, when they went from walking on fours to walking on twos, that was a risk.
Sure.
And everything that is worthwhile comes from a risk. From sailing out into the ocean to starting a fire to rolling a wheel, it's a risk. And if you think science or algorithms or AI can eliminate risk, you, you're not only delusional, you're denying all of human history. And in fact, I would say you're actually denying the genesis of the Big Bang, in that that was a haphazard relationship of atoms and neutrons and neutrinos and photons that just came together and blew up, and then this happened. And we're having a conversation.
Very
Holy
risky.
shit. Yeah. So I think, and I would imagine if you were speaking to a new age economist, he would say, well, that gold standard thing is nonsense because that's risk mitigation. And
Mhm.
if we abided by the gold standard and everything had to be paid for with rocks, which is essentially what gold is, or a metal, we'd have no economy at all.
We would have had to
We'd have
stop.
no economy.
Right. Right.
I mean, paper money is a risk.
Sure.
It's a concept. It's a weird concept. It's like the word fork. If you think about it for too long, you're gonna fuck your head. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all about risk taking, and at some point, so you think it was sort of a slow burn where the risk taking,
I was
I
at a
mean,
place. What the hell? I'm gonna say the name. They can't hurt me. With Digitas, which they
okay,
hired me because they wanted to gin up the market cap so they could sell. And they were all scientists. They were all consultants that had worked at Bain and went to Harvard Business School. They believed that advertising, which is at some level creativity, was an if-then proposition. If you do this, then that will happen. You ever hear of these two guys? I believe they're Russians, Komar and Melamed.
no,
You should look them up. They wrote a book, a famous book called "The World's Greatest Painting" or America's Favorite Painting, and they did massive surveys and they asked people what they wanted to see in a painting. And so Americans will say, well, we like water and we like wildlife and we like George Washington. And if you look it up, if you type in right now, if you can, Google, Malamud and Comid, world's America's favorite painting, you'll see it's a piece of shit. It makes Bob Ross look like Picasso. Um, and that's art without risk.
Yeah, I see
That's
it.
art based on a poll.
Right.
And that's kind of what we've come to. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, there's an article which I can send you if your readers are curious. I forget who it's by. I have it here. It's called The Age of Average. Um, and it's called The Age of Average. I'm opening up now. Give me a sec. By a guy called Alex Elex Murrell, Murrell. And he mentions Komar Malamed. Um, and he just shows how everything now is made to look like everything else, whether it's a cityscape, whether it's a fast food place. Starbucks looks like Chipotle, looks like Panera,
Mm.
whether it's a housing units, whether it's minivans or whatever people drive now. Everything has been homogenized to be pleasing, so everything sucks.
Right.
Basically, everything sucks. As John Glenn said apocryphally when he was coming back to Earth from the first American orbiting of the Earth, he's coming back from Earth. His spaceship is heating up. He's got a heat shield, that's flaming. And he said, "I realized that everything around me was based on a on a, on a low bid." Like,
That's a great
that's
way to
kind of
put
the
it.
world we live in now. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do low bid advertising.
Yeah.
That's risky, but not in a
Sure.
good way. And
Right.
that's
And
that's kind of what we're doing, low bid advertising.
yeah, I just saw they're putting out another Hunger Games movie, and it's
Okay.
like, you know, I think there was like three of them, and they came out like 15 years ago. So all the kids
Yeah.
in them are like older now. I mean, super old
Yeah.
now, and it's like. It's just somebody took a poll and said like, "Oh, they'll watch Hunger Games. Let's do that." I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it's
There's no new
it's
ideas.
the new
Yeah.
bid
Why,
for
why have
Paramount,
why take a risk?
right?
There's too much money involved.
Sure. Yeah, when I was at the school, the advertising school I went to, somebody said, I wish I could remember who, but it was like it might have been Jim Riswold, but it was he was our teacher. It was
He's got
like
some creds.
no matter what, be very something in what you do.
Yeah.
It's like if even if it's completely opposite, if it's awful, if it's just be very something. You have to be something,
You have to
and
stand for something.
that's always stuck with me of like if you look at it, the interiors of Airbnbs are all grayish and
Yeah.
all the same movie posters, all the same Instagram faces, all the same cars. I'll
Yeah.
tell people I appreciate the Cybertruck, not because it is ridiculous, but it looks different. Like it's actually a car that's trying to look different. Can we get back to that where cars were risky, at least
Yeah, but they're all. I
to be
just I
hated?
just sent that article, The Age of Average. I just put it in the chat so you can. It's worth at the very least looking at the 10 pictures in it.
It's great. I'm looking
Um.
at it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
But
true.
that is a prescription. What we're talking about is everyone doing the same thing because they think if they do the same thing as everyone else, somehow they'll stand out. And, because this guy stood out, Riswald stood out 40 years ago when he did this stuff. I'll do it now, 40 years later. No, it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that.
I mean, I sent him he passed away recently, but I
Yeah,
sent him a text with I was at a Nike store and they had like they had Spike Lee and Michael Jordan like t-shirts for sale.
right.
It's like 30, 40 years later, and you know, I I mean, look at Nike. Like we're hanging on to these old ideas, and they were great at the time, and they were legendary at the time. But just like rehashing the same shoe,
That's right.
rehashing the same cultural moment and trying to tell. The weird thing is trying to tell kids that this is important. Like going, you should care about this. This was like legendary at the time, and kids are like, "What are you talking about? We
Well,
don't
yeah.
even know what Nike is. We don't. We wear On or whatever. You know."
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to the question, what are you making right now? What are you working on right now? If you can talk about it.
Yeah. A lot of what I do, Zach, is I work very closely with companies to try to do exactly what we talked about just a moment ago.
Okay.
What's what in one sentence do you do that makes you different, better, necessary? So I do fewer actual ads. Sometimes I express that through an ad or a commercial or a video or whatever. But more, what I've found is companies don't know why they make what they make and how what they make is any different from what anyone else makes. It's really hard. So what I'm talking about is the necessary precondition to doing something better than anyone else, to doing advertising better than anyone else. And my sense of the current business, and this is mercenary on my part, is that these days almost anyone can do the actual ad. But finding that positioning, finding that
Mm.
thing, finding those salient points
Mm-hmm.
that make a brand, a product, or a person, a service stand out, that's where the work is. And that, from my point of view, and again, this is mercenary, is the value add. That's where I can charge non-commodity money. If you're just doing a rectangle, they're going to have a machine or their in-house agency do it, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
I'm not going to race to that bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there 50 times and I I do the positioning and then they say, "Yeah, but you're too expensive to do the ads." Fine. Fine. Yeah, if that's the way you want to be, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to fight it. So that's what. So I work in a lot of with a lot of technology companies who are usually their creativity is usually in making a technology product. It's not in selling it, or even articulating it. Um, and I do a lot of that. I'm doing a similar thing for a pretty big finance company right now, and about to start on another technology company in a week or so. So, I mean, that's what I do. Try to help people figure out what it is they do. And what's
So
funny, in my humble opinion,
yeah.
is you think that would be obvious, but I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who are a little younger than I. I'm old, but who after 20 years in the business, 25 years in the business, they're 50 years old and they find themselves unemployed. And, they have terrific portfolios and they call me because I've been successful with my own thing. And they say, "Well, George, how do I get work?" And I say, "Well, John, what do you do differently?" "What do you mean, what do I do differently?" "I've worked on this brand. I won this award. I did this. I do that." I go, "No, what do you do differently?"
Mm-hmm.
As you just semi-quoted Griswold, what makes you you? Why should I pick you? Because to tell you the truth, everybody's got a great portfolio. If you've lasted 20 years in the business, you've got a good book.
Yeah.
And if you're good at the computer in 28, you've got a good book. Um, once you're at a certain echelon, everybody's got a good fucking book. So what makes you different? I mean, so I spend 99% of my time trying to help brands figure out what makes them different, what makes them different slash better. And,
Eh,
I express it through ads or manifestos or whatever, but that's what I do.
So how pushing back on what you said earlier about how accountants are in charge. How do you make that type of work in an era where that type of work seems to be forgotten or unnecessary, if we're testing 1,000 shades of blue, 1,000 ads, how are you convincing these companies that they need this service right now?
Well, I'm really lucky, or I worked really hard, one or the other. I mean, I would kind of push it back to you and say, well, how the hell did you find me? Well, that's the way companies find me. I
Mm-hmm.
have a LinkedIn persona
Yeah,
where I've established for lack of a better word, a brand or a personality that seems interesting and different. And that's what I sell.
sure.
And if you want that, I mean, I don't call them, they call me. And in about a third of the calls, I say, well, you called me because you like the ads I do online, right? And they go, yeah. I said, well, that's what you're going to get. Ads that make you different.
Mm.
That's what I do. So when I tell people my prices, now my prices for me and my account manager, and it's high for a day rate,
Mm-hmm.
but compared to an agency that's going to bring 16 people in a room, 14 of whom never look up from their phones, I'm sure it's cheap.
Sure.
And, you know, a third of the people tell me I'm too expensive. So a third of the things I don't close, maybe 40, 50% I don't close. But I'm not going to have any fun with that business anyway. If they're going to be too cheap, it means they're going to be too cautious.
Mm.
And, you know, what we've been talking about since we got on the phone a few minutes ago is standing for something.
Right. Not being
And
cautious.
yeah, and if you don't, and me, if I don't go into the room con with whether or not I truly believe it is a matter for my therapist, but if I don't go into the room with some sort of belief and confidence that finding the core of a business is how you sell that business, then, you know, I won't get the job. What, but I would say to you, are you married?
Yeah.
Okay. So think back to when you were dating. If you went to a bar and you saw someone attractive and she saw you and thought you were attractive, and you would try to, when you met her, you'd try to let her know what made you special, right? In an
Sure.
interpersonal sense. I make good money, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
provider, I have a nice apartment, whatever. I run every day, whatever the hell it is.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? That's a human behavior,
Right.
but brands don't do it. Oh yeah, I'm just a soup.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not very good. I'm shitty food for poor people, as the Campbell's guy
Yeah,
said.
I'm about to bring that up. Like, not only
Like
am I
that's not
not
good
gonna,
advertising.
I'm not for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do this thing with clients. I'm not going to spill any beans here. This is the truth. Where because I noticed about 15 years ago, I was working for an agency that was more, I'd say, technology based than creative than communications based. And a lot of the tech clients, when they were done with their technical engagement, they'd say, we still need some messaging. And the agency would send those people to me. And I realized I was dealing with marketing people who didn't really have a marketing background. They were working more on UI and e-commerce and shit like that. And so they didn't really understand communications. So I took everything I know about communications and I called it down to four words, four D's. I call it the four D's. The first thing you have to do, and think about this if you were dating or trying to make yourself attracted to an employer or trying to get your kid into nursery school. The first D is define. Who are you? You could add differentiate to that. Who are you? What makes you different? But who are you? Second is demonstrate. How do you show it? I mean, in a world with a lot of digital, we should be able to show what makes a Mercedes different from a Hyundai, either rationally or showing the car braking and what happens or whatever the heck it is. The third is disseminate. How do you get it out there in an interesting way so it's not just in the same four places? And the fourth, which nobody does, I call disciples. How do you get those 20% of your customers who do 80% of your business to help you advertise, right? How do you give them materials to say, God, I worked with Zach. He was fucking fantastic. Same thing contractors do. Um, that's a pretty simple scheme. And I talk to people, about this in just this way. I have it all written out, but in just this way, and most of them are like, oh yeah, define, differentiate. You're kidding me. Most of them will say, well, nothing makes us different. So why'd you go into business? Why'd you open up shop?
Yeah. I just had a client tell me that, like, we're not really that different, actually, when I was trying to push them. And it's just like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, there's got to be there's I wrote a line for a private bank once that spun off from one of the big private banks. And I wrote a line that said, "We didn't start a new private bank just to act like an old private bank." And then you start, I didn't
Mm,
start a new agency just to act like an old agency.
right.
So you take, I mean, if you think about the Richard Branson Virgin paradigm, starts new airlines. Well, the last thing he wants to do is have tiny seats and excuse me, fat flight attendants, and shitty food. You want to do something a little different. That's how you get noticed. I mean, that's nominally every candidate you've ever voted for or not voted for, every apartment you've ever looked at. Well, it's different here. You've got a view of the blah blah blah, and there's plenty of parking. Something that makes you stand out. I mean, that's what this is about, standing out.
Right. And it's our job to sort of sell back to them what you see is different, because sometimes they can't see it in themselves. Sometimes they don't appreciate those differences.
Yeah, or they're afraid of talking about themselves, or they're afraid of feeling boastful, or they're afraid of,
Yeah.
or they don't have, let's just say, and I'm not saying this to be mean, they don't have because they're thinking of technical specifications, or how a vacuum cleaner has more suction power. They're not thinking about the empathy. More suction power gives you more time with your family. They're not thinking about that next connection. That they're thinking
Hmm.
about, excuse me, the functional aspect, not the human aspect of it. So sometimes you have to do that translation. And that's hard if you get too close to something. I mean, if you have kids, sometimes you don't see your own kid as extraordinary because, oh, that picture sucked. I'm not putting that on the refrigerator. But you have to kind of you have to look and say, oh, what did little Billy do with that, and what does it mean to him, and why is that important, and what did he negotiated to get the purple, and
Right.
somebody else had it, and he did that, and he tried something new, and sometimes you get lost in that because you're worried about your own stuff. I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
My I mean, I know it sounds radical, and I don't mean it to be radical, but my fundamental belief is that most brands don't really know what they sell. And that's at one level, if you think about the semantics of the advertising business, why do you have an agent? Why we're supposed to be agents? Because agents are outside the movie or the film or the script or the actor. And so they can look at the whole thing with a little bit of distance and say, this is why you need Cary Grant for this role. He can do this. And Cary Grant ain't going to say that. So we're supposed to be outsiders looking in and saying, here's what makes it special. And if you go back, and I'm not as up on Hollywood today as I was in Hollywood in the 40s, but a lot of the great directors in, let's say, the golden age of Hollywood were foreigners who escaped from Germany and Europe. And they came here, and because they weren't Americans, they could see America clearly.
Mm.
So Michael Curtiz was not an American. Billy Wilder was not an American. Ernst Lubitsch was not an American. So they could see America, they could hear America, they could sense America. Even I guess Coppola was born here, but he had an outsider's. A lot of these guys like Scorsese was an outsider. He was a poor kid, not a moneyed kid. They had a way of looking in and seeing a different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what agents are supposed to do. That's why we're supposed to be agents. We're not supposed to be bought and paid for. One of the reasons I don't really believe in in-house agencies.
Mm. Yeah. So what's that quote? You can't get a man to believe something when his salary depends on the opposite of it, or something like that.
Right, right,
it's,
right.
if they're paying you, then like whatever they say, yeah, we're doing AI now. It's like you can't be like, well, that sucks. You have to be like,
Yeah.
great, I love AI.
Well,
I'm actually
yeah,
starting an AI pilot because I'm so
yeah.
excited.
The thing that I had said was an in-house agency is the equivalent of getting marital advice from your mother-in-law. I mean, it's just not going to be unbiased.
Sure. Let's go back to money for a second because
Yeah, I like money.
you know, I think so. This podcast is supposed to be half about money, and as far as the title, like, what are you making? And I think for creative people starting out and middle of their career, there's a lot of nervousness talking about money. Like, how do I approach a client with a fee? You're very clear about it. You're like, I give them, I tell them what it is, and I tell them what it's replacing for them, like a team of people. I am not afraid to say no if they're starting to try to negotiate down. Like, what is your approach to all that? Obviously, you have confidence from your career, but
I
like,
don't really have confidence.
you don't have confidence.
I have a technique that makes me appear confident.
Okay, tell me.
I mean, sooner or later, it's sink or swim. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn how to walk into a room with no means of support, or you're gonna stay outside your whole life. So you have to learn to ask for money, or you're never gonna get it.
Right.
It's that simple. And you look around you and you say, well, and you try not to be a dick about it, an asshole or self-centered, but you say, well, I'm as smart as she is, and she's making X, so I'm going to ask for X. So my big leap, again, when I was leaving Ogilvy, was I saw two freelancers. I knew what they were making. I was like, if they're making this, I'm better than they are. And I knew that. And I lived in that, world for a little while. And then when I knew I was being fired, I looked at the head of their consulting arm, and I knew what she was making a day roughly. And I said, well, I'm every bit as smart as her. I didn't go to University of Chicago business school, but I'm a smart guy, and I can write. So if she asks for X, I'm asking for X. And if they don't want to see you like that, then they're not right for you. And then, after over and actually, and this isn't not I'm not even bullshitting. I could if you want me to, but I'm not even bullshitting. The two people I've had the hardest time convincing are when I hire an art director to work with, and I say, well, Mark, I'm going to pay you X, and he says, well, that's twice what I usually get paid. I go, yeah, that's what we do here. We're the best in the business, and we charge like the best in the business.
Hmm.
And then the woman who helps me manage my business, I've had a hell of a time convincing her because she's like, well, George, it's going to scare people away. Well, screw it. So, I finally got her on my side. But there's a. I mean, let me ask you a question. What kind of
Yes.
computer do you have?
I have an Apple Mac Mini with like a
Okay.
display. Yeah.
Okay. So the Apple Mac Mini costs 3 times as much as the Dell.
Sure.
Did you ever write to Tim Cook and ask him why? Like, I don't want your fucking computer. No, it's better. I mean,
It's very nice.
when you have an iPhone, I assume, and when
Yes.
you plug it into some sort of charger, that 3 foot cable costs you $29. It's 8 cents a wire, and you pay it because it's better. You believe it's better.
Mm-hmm.
You got to kind of walk into the room with that. The people
Yeah.
who open up the Apple stores aren't walking around going, God, we're shams. We're going to be found out. We're charging $69 for a 29-cent plug. We're going to get pilloried. Same thing with Nike.
Yeah.
It's a $4 sneaker made by slaves in Indonesia.
That's true.
And you're charging $300 for it? Who the hell are you? I mean, at some point you have to, what did they say? What was it, Keats? Suspend disbelief or Coleridge or somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to believe that you make a difference.
So
And so much work doesn't. And that's not the work I do.
yeah.
I can do it, but I can't charge for that.
Yeah.
Like,
My
why would you pay me for that? Why would you pay me for a parody product?
right. Yeah. One of my first jobs was a sales job, and we had to get people to fly to or drive to these hotels for these seminars to get people to sell their company. And when I tell people what I do, they're like, people actually like fly somewhere because you talked to them and you told them to go to this meeting, which is basically like a sales pitch with a continental breakfast. And it's like, yeah, you just talk to people and then you sell it, and then they do this. They fly and they call you and they thank you for the trip and they say it was great. I mean, they paid
Exactly.
for it, and it's like,
And
what? They called me and thanked me?
and
And
you get a third of your customers from recommendations.
sure, and at the end of the meeting, they would ask. It was $30,000 to get started, and the guy would sit down one on one, and and I was always confused. Like, how do you ask someone for $30,000? And I asked one of the guys one day. I said, like, how do you just tell somebody you're $30,000? And you pull a pen out of your coat, you hand the pen to the person, and you say, get out your checkbook and write me a check for $30,000 and we'll get started. And they do it.
Right.
He's like, you
Right.
just ask for it, people will comply. It's incredible. I mean, and I didn't believe it at the time that was possible, but over the course of advertising and working in marketing, it really is a story, is a sales pitch, and it is. There was that first thing I learned in sales was like, people want to be sold, people like to be sold, people like it, and so they encourage this. Like, the more you get into that, people are excited by it, which is the opposite of what we feel. We feel like we're gonna scare people away with prices and stuff.
When I'm going to stand up for a second, and so if I lose you, it's because I'm unplugging and
Okay.
going to wireless. I just need to stand up because my watch is yelling. Um, so, when I was about 2.5 years in, um, I got a job, an assignment with an ex-client of mine, and I'm just going to say Fortune 50, and it's a pretty big deal to me, and I was nervous about asking for the money I asked for. Um, they gave it to me without a problem, but this probably happens to a lot of people, and they realize if they're introspective, they realize it. So, I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I got this money and I'm going to be working for this many weeks for them, blah, 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 blah. And you start doing the math in your head. And after about 2 weeks, I was like, shit, I undercharged.
Right.
And I
Could have been.
called a friend of mine, who's famous in the business, Cindy Gallup. You've probably heard of
I've
her.
heard of Cindy Gallup for sure.
And one of the things, and she coaches now. I purposely called her, I know her, but she's not a friend. I have friends who are coaches like Rob Schwartz, but I purposely called someone on the outside who doesn't know me that well. And a lot of her coaching was more directed at women who see, who the prevailing thinking is that women have a harder time asking for money than men, that men or women have more imposter syndrome than men. I don't
Yeah.
really believe that, but I'm not going to get into that argument anyway. And I called Cindy and, I paid her. I paid her $1,000 for an hour, um, which is more than I get. And I said, how do I know if I'm charging enough? And I told her what I was charging. And she said, well, and I asked her because she has this thing like ask for as much as you possibly can without cracking up. And I said, I did that, and now I feel like it's not enough. And she didn't tell me to ask for more. She doesn't do that. But, it gives you have to kind of constantly it's not gamesmanship, but it's knowing that you're doing something. Okay, this is going to be a complicated idea, and a lot of people hate me for this. But when people lose their jobs and they call me, and this happens, say, 6 times a year, probably happen more with everything that's going on in the business. The first thing I ask them is, what do you do better than anyone else in the world? And most people, if they're not charlatans or delusional, say, I don't do anything better than anyone else in the world. I'm a copywriter, or I'm an art director, or, I've worked at this place. I won a few awards. I go, no, 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 no. That's not good enough. What do you do better than anyone else in the world? I need you to think about this. And what you usually have to do is you have to smallerize. You have to say, well, I'm a writer.
Hmm.
Well, I'm good at handling complicated stuff.
Hmm.
Well, I'm good at technology.
Hmm.
Well, I'm best in the world at making really complicated shit simple.
Mm.
So you kind of funnel it down
Zoom
in a
in.
sense.
Yeah.
So it's not like I make chocolate.
Hmm.
Well, I make a higher degree of cocoa chocolate. Well, I put a little salt in it. Well, I make I make the best salted dark chocolate in the world that comes from free range Peruvian fucking beans. And you
Right.
get down to that, and then you can charge a lot for it.
Right.
That's a lot of work. It's 40 years of therapy right there. But you have to learn how to do it.
Right.
You have
Like
to
you said,
because
positioning.
well, it's positioning and it's where we started.
Yeah.
How do you become the most you can be?
Yes.
If you just say, "Well, I'm a pretty good copywriter," you're a dime a dozen. You're not going to get the money.
Right.
And
25 an
if
hour.
yeah, yeah, right, right. And there's always someone
Yeah.
who'll do it cheaper.
Sure. Um, I
You
love
know,
this. And
I had this screensaver on my computer for a while, something my therapist of 48 years said to me. And I taught myself to say it, which was when somebody said that's too much money. He taught me to say, well, I'm sure you can find someone who can do it at the price you can afford.
ooh,
Click. And that's all you can do.
right.
I can't make you see my worth.
Sure.
And you know what? Going back to interpersonal now, if you were meeting someone at the bar and you had to force her to see your worth, she's not right for you.
Yeah, what is that about the clients that they're saving the world and they're the worst to work with, but the
Yeah,
clients that, like I worked on Gatorade. Gatorade was awesome. Like Gatorade was
right.
never any problem. We did a lot of good work and it was smooth. And I'm not trashing Gatorade, but it's just like it is just
Yeah, it's water
salty
and sugar.
sugar and
Yeah,
water and
Yeah.
then we're selling it. So yeah, there's some truth to that, of like what you said about the difficulty. With people give you more difficulty, it's not really worth your time, and it's sort of costing you money, right? Because it's costing you money. The complexity of the client and like their difficulty costs you. You want to go to therapy, more time in
Yeah.
therapy, more less sleep,
Yeah.
more stress. It's like
And
you're
and
actually end up paying them, right?
it's not fun.
Right. It's true.
Like,
It's
not
not fun.
not that work should be, tiptoeing through the tulips, but it
Right.
shouldn't be miserable either.
Yes. Okay, I want to switch topics. I want to
Okay.
go to your most recent AdAged, and it's about the idea that people really hate brands more and more. Like the advertising that's coming out right now, the
Yeah.
commercials. There's even a Reddit which is like commercials I hate, or I hate seeing this commercial or something. Like people are so mad they're going to Reddit going, stop showing me the Verizon uh cookie on the cookie on the Christmas tree that talks.
Right.
Stop showing me this annoying stuff. So we kind of talked about it, but like creativity involves risk. These brands don't want to take risk. These ads suck. These clients are out of touch. What does it take to bring back a resurgence of creativity to advertising? Is it a recession? Like, is it one of those moments where like financial, we have to get shaken and woken up to people going, all right, let's do the risk thing again?
You know, I mean, I put something out on LinkedIn yesterday that I'm just putting in the chat now, that less than 24 hours, fewer than 24 hours ago, that's already gotten 12,000 views, called 26 Eternal Truths.
Yes, I saw that.
And to me, a lot of what that was about, that took me about 8 minutes to write. Because a lot of what that's about is remembering that we're humans. We're not machines. People don't have to like us. We have to try to be good. We have to explain things to people. We have to make things easy for people. I'm not a Christian. I'm a Jew. I'm not a Christian. But where's the fucking golden rule on all this? And you're beating me over the head with bullshit and lies. And why should I then treat you well? Why should I then care about you? I mean, I haven't been on a plane in a while, thank God. But the subject object split between the experience you get in 99% of all stores or airplanes or choo-choo trains or restaurants and the experience they show on TV is so broadly different that why should I trust anything you say? And the only way to do good advertising, the only way to do good advertising, it's not the only thing you need, but it's the core is to be honest. And if you're not honest, it sucks. Period. You can exaggerate, you can have funny, you can be funny. Old Spice was an exaggeration, but it was funny. It wasn't a lie. You wanted to smell better and look better. You know, yeah, I got it. I'm not going to look like Terry Crews, but you know, it made me laugh. I didn't hate it, and it was based on a truth. Nobody wants to be lied to. And God, I don't listen a lot. I don't even have a TV anymore. But I was in a taxi cab in the city, and the driver was playing, had the radio on, and they played some Verizon commercials. And I tried to imagine myself either from the agency side or the client side, thinking about the efficacy
Mm-hmm.
of paying for a commercial, recording a commercial, airing a commercial that had literally 20 seconds of legal copy at like 300 words a minute.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
basically, you're saying, don't believe me.
Right.
Because
Undoing the
why do
ad.
you need, yeah, everything the ad part said was a lie. That's why I have to have all these legal disclaimers afterwards. It's
Right.
like, and they give people MBAs to do this? That makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. It's like Pfizer and Eli Lilly with the dancing people, and then they're
Right,
saying suicidal diarrhea, is
right,
common.
right,
And it's like,
right.
yeah,
Like
right on.
what are you doing?
Sure.
What are you doing? I mean, I saw a commercial the other night, last night, through LinkedIn. It was Oscar the Grouch. Is it Oscar the Grouch, the guy who lives in the garbage pail
Yeah.
for hefty bags?
Yes.
Well, that's a funny idea. That's a funny idea. But when I got to the commercial itself, everyone started dancing and singing about a garbage bag. I mean, you lost me, boys and girls. I mean, the idea was fine. And, I go back a long time in advertising. When I was a kid, they had Jonathan Winters as the hefty garbage man. And he was a feet garbage expert telling you how to get rid of garbage better so it doesn't smell. And it's the same idea as Oscar the Grouch, except they executed it with respect to the viewer.
Right. Well, that's a good point. Respect to the viewer. The viewers lost all respect in a safe environment.
Yeah, and there was an old Ogilvyism. The consumer isn't a moron. She's your wife. Okay, so
Sure.
that's gendered today. But take out the gendered bit. The consumer isn't a moron.
Right.
And they look at the shit you hear. And I'll go one further is there's a semantic truth to this. What do the platforms call you? You're a user,
Right.
i.e., you're an addict. We're going to treat you like shit because you're a user and we're going to use you. And they lie and they inundate and they deceive.
Hmm.
And some of us are not so stupid that we don't notice.
So, what takes us back to Jonathan Winters? Not that that was the peak, but like, what takes us back to being honest? What takes us back to being creative again? Is it an economic crash where people feel like, all right, I got to do something different and stand out? Like, what does it take, or are we too far gone?
Well, I'm old. I'm 68, so I'm going to say we're too far gone. It's not
Okay,
coming back.
it's
You know,
hopeless.
but you do see flickers of
Yeah.
people doing good work.
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't like the last couple, but the Apple Underdog stuff,
Mm-hmm.
those mini movies they do are pretty, excuse me, pretty empathic and honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just saw another Apple thing with animals. Somebody drops his phone in the woods and animals make a Christmas card,
Yep.
and it was kind of lovely. It doesn't tell me anything I don't know,
Right.
but it was kind of lovely. Um, I can't really think of that much more that I've seen lately that is human and wonderful and talks to me like I have a brain. And
Mm.
look, I know, you know, there are probably some functional reasons in the business today that don't allow honesty. And I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Okay.
So my perception, and it's based on being in the inside for so long, and how life in an agency changed in my 41 years in an agency, is you used to be paid for by a client and you lived and breathed that client's business, especially if you were in one of the two or three biggest accounts in the agency. So they spent enough money to quote unquote own you. So you bought the product, you tested the product, you went to the store, you talked to engineers, you went to the assembly line. You knew that fucking product. Today, I could get a call this afternoon from an agency that says we've got to pitch the Suzuki automobiles is coming back to the United States. We got to pitch the Suzuki account. I go, okay. And they'll send me a 58-page PowerPoint and maybe a brochure if I'm lucky, or give me a Suzuki website. I'll have no road feel I'll have no idea about the car. I'll have no idea what went into it, and I'll have 4 hours to work on it before the first tissue session. So what am I going to do, Zach? I'm going to do the same soccer mom down the same windy road in the rain. A deer! I stopped. Oh my God, the car stopped all by itself. And then the kids pile out, and the coach gives her a look.
Hmm.
Like that's what you get in 2 hours. And
Right.
that's a functional problem
Sure.
of it's the difference between carpet bombing and diplomacy. One is, one is just going to blow the shit out of everything. The other might have an effect over time.
Yeah. Yes, that's interesting. So it's a time crunch, and it's a disrespect for the viewer, and it's a
And the craftsperson.
and the craftsperson because they're not actually
And
experiencing anything that has to do with the product. That's good.
no, you have to be able to
Yeah.
take it apart.
Right.
I mean, you have to be able to actually take it apart to understand what goes into it.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I don't mean, with a screwdriver and shit like that, but you have to kind of
Sure.
touch it and feel it and look at some of the details.
There was a guy, I can't remember his name, famous graphic designer. He was a brand new conference in New York, and he was talking about working on ads for a laundromat. He's like, you need to go sit in the laundromat, you need to smell the laundromat, you need to
Yeah.
look at the people that are coming in. And he's coming from a graphic design space. He's talking about designing a logo, but it's the same communications exercise of like understanding the product, sitting with it. A lot of times, especially with apps and digital stuff, it's like, oh, it's not out yet. It's not, but this is what it's going to do. And it's like, okay. It's so
Yeah.
disconnected from the experience, which is why these product companies don't have a lot of love for brand because they think it's unnecessary. They think it's sort of like silly if you have a product that works. But then I always tell them, what happens when your competitor introduces one that's faster?
Well, that's
Or
why I always tell clients or agencies for that matter, telling me you have a new AI is not a competitive advantage because in 3 weeks, everybody else is going to have the same AI. And unless you're willing to spend literally billions always being first mover, you're not going to win. You're not going to win.
right,
So it's just the way it is. I mean, when I see WPP, Cindy Rose saying, "Oh yeah, our new AI is going to make it easy for clients." Yeah, but what makes you think Publicis or Omnicom or Dentsu or Havas aren't going to have the same thing in three weeks? That's maybe a little better because they took what you started with and made it a little better because that's what I would do.
right.
You know, if you put 12 chocolate chips in your cookie and I have to compete against you, I'm going to put 14 in. I'm
You
going to
put
say the more
40 in.
chocolate chip cookie.
This is just chocolate chips now. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, let's do another hard pivot to monopolies.
Okay.
I mean, so the two companies I've worked with as a full time employee, Instrument and Work and Co, has been most of my career.
Okay.
Now I'm a freelancer. Instrument was sold like I don't know 7, 8, 9 years ago. Work and Co was sold like 2 years ago. Um, so and obviously we've had in the news the massive
Yeah,
monopolies, and then we whether it's advertising or you have like
yeah,
Netflix and Warner Brothers,
yeah,
this stuff is just getting more and more bloated, bigger and bigger.
yeah,
I guess I want to
yeah.
hear your
It's the
perspective.
beginning of a dark age.
Yeah, I just want to hear your perspective on this because will there be a return to small? Will you and I, as freelancers, have an advantage? As the agency I work with said differently. It's all freelancers. It's all global. It's a different way to staff. Is that a unique value add?
I mean, I
What are
don't
your
know
thoughts?
outside of, excuse me, outside of lowering prices. I don't know what advantage a client would have going to Omnicom than going to me because I don't know what Omnicom can do. I know they own 99 different agencies and they've got one that specializes in nostril advertising or something, and I don't. But
Right.
for the
VR holograms.
yeah, but for the 90, but if you agree, if you go back to David Ogilvy, and this is obviously conceptual, it's metaphorical, and he would say that 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. So you spend 5 times as much time on the headline as the body copy, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Well, 95% of advertising is going to win or lose on knowing what makes a brand different. And if you haven't figured that out yet, you don't need the VR holograms because that's just a fucking execution.
Right.
And yours is going to be the same as someone else's. That's all. So in terms of finding a point of difference, I don't know what the big guys do better than what I do. And maybe I do it better because I've been doing it for my entire life, and maybe I'm a little crazy. Okay, so I highly recommend a book that's out. I can send you the review. I have it
Okay.
right here. I'm going to send you the review right now so I don't forget, Zach. Have we reached? It's called Peak Human by a guy called Johann Norberg.
Okay.
And I literally just finished the book maybe last Monday. And what he does is he looks at what he calls 7 golden ages of history.
Okay.
Periods of time when the rising tide lifted all ships. People got richer, art got better, um, so on and so forth, and whatever. So he looks at 7 civilizations. I just sent you something, maybe not
Okay.
exactly the right thing, but
Okay.
it's close enough. Um, he looks at 7 civilizations in this book that just came out in September. Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the Abbasids in the Middle East, the Persia, Saudi Arabia area, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, the Song Dynasty in what today would be central China, Italian Renaissance, the Dutch, and then what he calls the Anglosphere. So kind of the morphing of the United Kingdom into the United States into like a world hegemony between the United States, Canada, England, Australia. And he looks at things that make golden ages. And basically, the one thing they all those civilizations have in common, so they're spread out over 3,000 years all around the globe, is diversity. I don't mean she's black, I'm white, he's tall, I'm short, she's fat, I'm skinny. I don't mean that. I mean a ferment, a fecund uh, propagation of ideas, of thoughts, of
Mm.
permissible
Mm-hmm.
language, of
Diversity of
trying
thought.
things,
Yes.
diversity of thought. And if you look at those golden ages, so my reading it, yeah, I'm interested in history, but I'm like, how can we make a golden age of agencies? What are the commonalities? Because the people at DDB being out of business now, the people at DDB just didn't get dumb. The people who were
Right.
great didn't get dumb. The people who I worked at a place called Hal Riney, it was the best agency in the world for a while. I worked at Allen Carcano, best agency in the world. And then 10 years after the best agency in the world, they're out of business. Did they get dumb or did they close off their minds? So right now we have a closing off. I mean, Harold Bloom wrote a book, The Closing of the American Mind, right? A bestseller 40 years ago. But we have, and if you look at, it's hard not to get political, closing borders,
Mm-hmm.
closing universities, closing news organizations, consolidating wealth. All these things close diversity of opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening. So when you have 80% of the ad business controlled by 2 companies, And their chief bean counter officer says the most effective way to do advertising is to make really small things to make sure Zech sees 32 million a day. You can't take a shit without seeing 40 ads. That's all you're going to get. And if
Right.
you say, I ain't doing that, you're out of work.
Right.
So if you do anything different, say, I want money, you're out of work. If you say, well, what if we did it left-handed? You're out of work. So all that is closing out thought that isn't an orthodoxy. So stay on the word orthodoxy for a minute. If you think about theocratic states, they have an orthodox belief system. You're dead or excommunicated or exiled or a pariah, ostracized, if you don't believe what you're supposed to believe. And that's what's happening. Now, there's always assholes like me who, when I'm told to sit down, I stand up. Portland is based on that. The fact that America migrated from the East Coast to the West Coast was based on people saying, I don't want to do what they tell me to do in the East. So there's always people who are going to find a spark in the dark. And eventually, when they start winning business like Droga or Mischief, not Droga anymore, like Mischief, like places like that, eventually the big guys will say, well, how do I buy them and ruin them? And, so
Right.
um, there'll be a little energy brought into those new places because eventually one of those places will start to get critical mass. Now, the danger now is, I think, more egregious than it's been in that not only is our economy controlled by monopolies, the ad industry is controlled by
Mm-hmm.
monopolies, and monopolies are comfortable with monopolies. So you don't really have a small phone company that says, "Well, I don't want to do this." And Apple's kind of a good example. You know, they haven't really innovated, and innovation is not going to come from Samsung or whatever. So you see a retarding, and I don't mean that in the way you're not supposed to use that word. I mean a going backwards, a slowing down of anything that isn't, again, the orthodoxy. You have to accept that there's one God and my interpretation of that one God.
Mm.
Or you don't work anymore.
Right.
It's Soviet.
And it kind of works that way with what we're seeing with AI, right? Every company is now feels like they need to make an AI ad. Coke's done two in a row. McDonald's just put one out and I guess just pulled it. If I'm seeing on LinkedIn correctly, it's gone. And these are obviously classic American brands that have led for years, that have grown for years and done really well. Uh, and on the creative side, you have people saying, this is a quote from Sweet Shop, I guess, is who made it, which is ironic. But for 7 weeks, we hardly slept with up to 10 of our
Oh, I
in
saw
house
that.
AI
Yeah.
and post specialists. We
Who
generated
cares?
thousands of takes. It was a film, it was not an AI trick.
Who fucking cares
So
how
they're
how long they didn't sleep? Who cares? It's not a consumer benefit.
right, but they work so hard to make this
Who
ad.
cares?
So Coke, they apparently aren't reading the room. McDonald's is and saying we're gonna pull it. What's going on with this? Like, are we just gonna have to make better AI ads until they're good?
No. So I just put an article from yesterday's Wall Street Journal, an op-ed. I don't agree with everything in it. I just put it in the chat. It's called
Okay.
AI, It's a Gift to Human Creativity. And
Yes.
I've been way against this. But if you read the subhead, when anyone can produce passable work, real talent becomes more readily apparent than ever. Let's just stick on that. So I think we have an infatuation with, oh my God, a machine made this. Oh my God, it's so great. And we
Hmm.
forgot it actually has to be good. It actually has to be good. And good means quirky and human and different and weird. It doesn't mean homogeneous. It's not back to Komar and Melamed, where everybody likes blue shirts, so everyone's wearing a blue shirt. That our expression of happiness has to be dancing because that's, AI is a pattern matching machine. It's very at its most reduced. So in 92% of the 100 commercials made by such and such, when people got happy, they danced or they high five. So that's what we're going to do. When I see the little pregnancy thing, when I get my colonoscopy report, I'm going to start dancing.
Sure.
So what we have to figure out, okay, I'm going to give you an example. You can look this up or I'll send it to you.
Okay.
There's a movie that I love directed by a guy called Alexander McKendrick, 1958, Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis. Sweet Smell of Success.
Okay.
Great movie. Great fucking movie. And there's a scene in there. Tony Curtis is slime and he uses the busty cigarette girl to help him advance the ball on something. And they're in a crowded bar. He's a press agent, so he hangs around crowded bars. And she comes over to him and she's pissed. And she comes up to him and she says to him, "What's the matter?" She's from Queens. "What's the matter? Don't you get my messages, eyelashes?" She calls them eyelashes. And I'm like, holy shit, eyelashes. In the history of the world, has anyone called anyone else eyelashes like that? It is so fucking brilliant and human. And you have 4 volumes of backstory about their relationship. A machine can't do it. A machine can't do it. Melville wrote, "Fish and humans wriggle. It's not good when people wriggle. We're all wriggling now."
Hmm.
But that in it of itself is an observation that only a human can make. Only a human can make it. The machine is blanderizing. So if right now we're over relying on machines and we're forgetting humans, eventually, if we're smart, and this is a big if, we'll make sure humans have to put a little check mark next to the thing and say, yeah, that's okay, but give me an hour with this thing. Give me an hour with this thing. Let me make it a little better. And
Well,
we're not doing that.
people hate it. I mean, there's a study out this week that said AI outperformed human advertising. And I looked that up. I looked into the actual study, and for one
Yeah.
thing, they didn't use any copy. It was just images. So the AI images looked weird and slash cool in the sense that like some colors made a kiwi where there was no kiwi fruit or something, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like,
Something.
oh, okay. So they say that outperformed. Okay, there's no words, so that's the other funny part is like, let's see the AI words versus the human words, and so it said outperformed, and it had it much higher, but it said when people were told it was AI, they hated it, and it was much lower. So what are they going to do when everything's working to the numbers as far as like these are looking like successful ads, but then when people find out what they are, they hate the company. They talk about honesty and reputation. They
And
hate it.
treating people
Is
and
is
treating people human.
right? Are we gonna say that doesn't matter? Like you just took it like Coke. You just how many hundreds of years? Well, Coke has not been around hundreds of years, but
Yeah, they have.
it feels like it. Maybe yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they have. Okay, so how many hundreds of years of Coke imagery was evaporated as soon as that first AI ad came out? Instantly,
And
love for the brand,
to what end? What is it doing for us? What? Because it's
raising
cheap.
the stock price. That's what it's doing.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Temporarily.
Temporary,
Temporarily.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
what
fine.
matters.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So fine. If you want to gin everything, if you want to live life on ginning things up, fine, go ahead.
Well, we saw
Go
this
ahead.
morning Disney. Disney says we'll sell our entire, OpenAI Sora. You can use all the Disney characters, which means all of Star Wars, which means all of Indiana Jones, everything. You can use it on an AI now with Sora. We're down. Like we're gonna invest in OpenAI. So every company, there's another one: Disney, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. What's more American than that?
Right.
They are saying, yeah, just go ahead and prostitute all our IP to the AI slop feed of Sora, which
Yeah, well,
is people answering a Ring doorbell and like
yeah.
monkeys, bananas, tin soldiers, like every that's Sora, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. I haven't seen an interesting thing on there except for like an elephant running into a house and destroying everything, and that
It's
was
still,
cool for
I
a
mean,
second, but
y- you know, a, literally, Zach, I have to get off at noon because I have another call, but
okay,
just giving you a fair warning.
sure.
Literally 25 years ago, I was working on IBM, and at the time they still had a PC division. And the big news in the PC division at the time, 1999, let's say 2000, was Dell, that they had figured out a way to sell directly. Now, that doesn't sound like holy shit to someone your age because you grew up with computers. To someone my age or even older who we don't know what a hard drive is,
Mm-hmm.
much less RAM or anything else. We don't know how to this is this could be like the car equivalent would be, do you want a four-barrel carburetor or two? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I never had to
Right.
make these decisions before. I've had a typewriter until now.
Right.
So what they noticed, and I was, working on IBM. It was pre-Lenovo, ThinkPads. And what IBM noticed was people would get 80% of the way through specking something, on IBM.com. So they picked the form they wanted, they wanted the X series. They picked a rough idea of memory, a rough idea of hard drive size, maybe a software thing or two. And they get 80% of the way done and they couldn't press buy.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized that there's a chasm. Like at some point you need that human, it's a little bit like, I don't know if you know the story about apocryphal, about when cake mix was first introduced in America. It's mostly housewives, and it was a way they could make a cake for their family and feel fulfilled as moms. Sorry, this is gendered, but it was the era 75 years ago. But the original cake mixes where you just poured the mix into a bowl, you poured water in, and you mix it and you poured it in a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it failed abjectly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they reformulated it and they made the woman have to crack an egg in.
Yes, I've heard this story. Yes.
And the egg was a proxy for human.
Yes. Where's the
And
human?
I saw a similar thing in this 80% paradigm. And it stuck in my head. I formed these things and I go, well, I'm going to believe this until I prove it otherwise, but I haven't been able to in 25 years. That software is really good for 80% of the shit you do. If you're at the airport and for whatever reason you have to switch flights, you can do it on an app. If you have to switch a hotel room, you can do it on an app. But if you're in the airport and you have to switch flights and it snows, then you need a person, right? 80%
Right.
normal, you're fine. Like
Right.
most things are like that. Probably, if you have trouble with your cable system, they're going to say, well, did you restart? You'll go through a phone tree to, your bot, did you restart? But
Right.
20% of the time, you need a person.
Right.
You can't get one anymore. But I think it's going to be the same thing with AI. Right now we're in the AI is holy shit. It's we can turn base metal into gold.
Yes.
And it's great and it's going to change everything and we're going to make so much money, but maybe intelligence will prevail and say if you want something like calling someone eyelashes, that takes a human and
Yes.
that costs money. If you
Hmm.
want a brush stroke, that takes a real genuine, there's a do you know this guy called Oscar Kokoschka?
No.
I'm gonna give me a sec. So I read this book. I read a lot. Hold on a second. I'm
I'm
looking
looking
for
him
it.
up right now. Yes, I see him.
Okay. So hold on. I got it right here. It's going to take me a second to find it, but I want to find it. So, because there's something I want to like read directly
Okay.
because it's important. It's from a book called The Age of Insight by a guy who won the Nobel Prize in neuroscience. All right. So he's not a slouch. And he went he looks at he looks at a bunch of artists and the way our brains work and all this shit to make his points. And I'm getting to Kokoschka. Okay, so he looks at Klimt, Kokoschka, and Egon Schiele. And hold on, I need to find this picture. Just give me a sec, man. I'm sorry, I'm eating up airtime.
It's okay.
Um, fuck a duck. If I knew how to spell Kokoschka, this would all be easier. Um, oh damn, I'm sorry, man.
Is it
Just give me one more second.
Oskar Oscar Koko
Yeah,
Sech
Kakashka. Yeah,
Koko
yeah,
Schka? Okay.
yeah. But there's one specific bit I want to get to.
Okay.
Yeah, here you go. Page 220. So can I share my screen?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not. You got to turn it on.
Uh,
If you type the
advanced sharing
green the
options.
thing
Okay.
that
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Now it
okay
should work.
okay. So I'm going to share this. Can you see that? That's Kakashka right there. That picture.
Yes.
Okay, you see it?
Yes.
Now there's only four fingers. You see that he's only got four fingers on his hand.
Yes, I do. Uh huh.
So, but he writes this bit. Um, the portrait of Reinhold, a picture especially important to me, contains one detail that has hitherto overlooked. In my haste, I painted only four fingers on the hand he lays across his chest. Did I forget to paint the fifth? In any case, I don't miss it. To me, it was more important to cast light on my sitter's psyche than to enumerate details like five fingers, two ears, one nose.
Hmm.
Um, One thought that Kokoschka clearly had not put into words was how an artist as observant as he could possibly have left off a finger of his friend's hand. If we follow the period of great portraits that begin with the transplayers, it's clear that the slip was in the Freudian sense an omission with great unconscious meaning. Blah, 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 blah. But my point is simple. Humans are human, and machines are perfection devices.
Right.
And perfection is an art. Perfection is the absence of art. As a matter of fact, there was an editorial in the Times last week by a concert pianist about how perfection is the absence of art. It started off, I have it here because as you know, I write everything down because everything's on my blog. So I'm going to share again. Um, it was called "I'm a concert pianist. This is why I seek imperfection."
Mm.
And this was the quote by Patti Smith that drew me into the article. As a performer, one has a mission, like Coltrane, to take your solo out and talk to God.
Mm.
And you
Wow.
go,
Love that.
that ain't a machine.
Right.
No, I'm not grandiose enough to believe this is advertising because I'm not Coltrane or Patti Smith. But I do believe, as I put at the end here, perfection is the enemy of art. And in finding the truth, we make mistakes. We make mistakes on our way to truth. And that's what makes what we do interesting and human.
Beautiful.
That wasn't
Uh,
a bad ending.
that was a great ending. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I think it'd be great to do another show in the future, get to
Sure.
more points. But I mean, this was great. Thank
Yeah, just
you.
send me a note, Zach. I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, really fun, and it's great to hear the history, all the knowledge you dropped. Amazing. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I did go
really
from
really grateful.
Kokoschka to Patti Smith pretty quickly.
No, I mean I feel like that's a good. When I think advertising creative directors, I think people who can drop knowledge on a dime from different sources in
Because
five conversations. These are your people. This is what happens.
yeah, yeah, because we grew up near bookstores,
Sure.
not just stealing other people's stuff. We grew up looking and learning.
Yeah.
Big difference. All right,
Yeah.
I got to go. I got this
All
call.
right. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
Zach,
George.
take care.
Take care, man.
Call me if you need anything. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.